Hello and welcome to Halcyon Blink. My name's Lon Rise and I'm going to be your host for this episode. And on this edition, I want to talk about Max Payne 3. A really good third-person shooter, and one I picked up dirt cheap. I think I picked it up for about £3 a couple of years ago when Xbox One was handing over from Xbox 360. I really loved this game. Graphically, I thought it was reasonably impressive considering the change from one console to the other, but with detail and the character models, the animations of the people as they're shot, the bullet time mechanics and all the rest of that jazz. I was also reasonably impressed with the story. Personally, from a personal perspective though, I was going through some of my own shit at the time, so it was kind of refreshing in a really weird way to see a character suffering in the same way that I felt that I was suffering at the time in terms of being abandoned and having this sense of loneliness and loss and this idea that you have this lack of sense of direction in your life, and it was refreshing to see a character portrayed in such a raw and visceral way. I really liked it. The story itself though kind of devolves to a certain degree into that of betrayal and people being murdered for the sake of being murdered. It's very dim and dry, a lot of it. It doesn't really have a good ending, if I'm perfectly honest with you, in the sense that Max still doesn't really get a chance to ride off into the sunset, even though this is probably his last game. I don't know if they'll bring him back for this generation or indeed the next. If they do, it would be difficult to see how they could pick up from this storyline in any meaningful way, considering that it's all kind of been dragged out by this point. In terms of the characters within the story, you have it's set in Brazil. You also have some elements that are shot in Jersey, so you have your typical Jersey gangsters. But the predominant nature of this game is filmed in Brazil, so there's this disjointed nature of everyone being able to speak Portuguese while Max doesn't. You also have the sense of crime and corruption and the politicians and blah blah blah. They're supposed to be intrigue, but I've got to be honest. When the characters, get that you don't really have enough time to get introduced to some of them to care about them. Even your main partner is somewhat of a kind of an annoying character. If you ask me, it's just my personal opinion. Max himself is what you play this game for. He is the John McClane of this generation's gaming. He's just this almost superhero character who's able to bust caps in people's asses at will. And we've got to talk about it because the bullet time in this game is by far and away the most enjoyable bullet time I've ever played. Enter the Matrix was an example of bullet time that was utilized poorly, but was a nice mechanic and a nice idea. This game, it's the satisfaction of having free aim, and I would recommend this from the get-go. I would not use the snap-on mechanic. It offers you 3 tiers, a soft lock, a hard lock, and a free aim. Pick the free aim. As much as it might be appealing to pick the hard lock mechanic, 2 things. Number 1, it takes away the vast majority of the enjoyment of this game, which is while you're in slow-mo, being able to pick your spot and pick off the guy, just boo, boo. It's so much fun. But also toward the later part of the game, they wear body armor, and the snap-on mechanic would typically aim for their chest, which means you're only going to waste bullets by capping them in the chest, rather than using the free aim to pick them off one by one with headshots. As sadomasochistic as that sounds, I'm giving you advice on how to cap people, but anyway, let's digress around that for a second. The bullet time is the main edge of this game. You don't have any driving mechanics. You don't really have any falling mechanics or anything like that. You have the occasional quick time event whereby you'll bust into slow-mo mode and you'll be asked to pick off enemies as you go. You don't really have much in the way of stealth. There is an element of the second stage, if you want to call it that, where there's some stealth mechanics and you can use a silencer, but it devolves really quickly into a full-blown shootout, and there's not really much incentive to keep quiet when each aspect of the level feels segregated from the rest. For instance, you'll go into a section where there's maybe 6 or 7 guys, kill all of them in a massively loud and over-the-top shootout with explosions and ample gunfire, but yet you'll go into the next stage and everyone's going to be acting like they didn't hear anything. So there's a bit of a peel away from there, but I understand from the perspective that each section of these levels are designed with a lot of due care and attention to the cover mechanics, to things that can explode in the background, to ways that you can utilize your environment against your enemies, the dives between certain covers, the weapons that are available, things like that. You also have other things like collectibles, golden guns, to be able to collect them to give you more strength, I guess. I never really used the golden gun mechanics. I imagine that they have some form of bonus, but I don't know because I never use them. You also have other cheats and things like that, like invulnerability, but you have to earn them as you go. You can replay certain levels for points bonuses and things like that, but overall this package is excellent. I would argue that it's one of the best third-person shooters that you're ever going to find because of the mechanics, the satisfaction of the shooting, all the weapons feel impactful. Max as a protagonist is excellent. The story, while serviceable, Max holds it up with a great deal of emotional connection with the player. And overall, it's just a very satisfying experience where, you know, you basically play as John McClane in a Die Hard film. And a good one at that. So if no other reason I'd recommend this to people for, a good third-person shooting experience, but also a good character-based experience. If you're looking for a good story, you can set it to a super easy level and be able to take it on. The later levels will kick your ass because they're all wearing body armor from head to toe and you're given literally no ammunition with a handgun. You also have a pill mechanic, now that I remember it, which I appreciate the idea behind it, but I never really liked the representation of pills being used as health. It's just something that didn't resonate well with me as far as that's concerned. But there are pills throughout the level and you can use them to increase your health. You can also use them to effectively, they act as sort of lives, to be perfectly honest with you. You have a health bar that goes down and down and down. So overall, it's a good game. It's definitely recommended for those who want a top-down third-person shooter experience that's got plenty of good mechanics, is well-defined, good graphics, a good character. If I'm going to rate this out of 10, it's an 8 out of 10 experience. It really is that good. It's an exceptional storytelling experience. Rockstar, of course, know how to make a really good shooter game. It's just a shame that they didn't apply some of these mechanics to GTA, but I suppose that's already crammed full of mechanics and certain things that putting that particular type of shooting in there might be a step too far, so I can appreciate that. So thanks very much for watching this episode of Halcyon Blink. Please like, share, subscribe, check out some of the other content creators in the description below. Follow me on Twitter, and as always, take care of yourselves, and I'll see you guys on the next episode of Halcyon Blink.